You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. The transfer portal window opened. It's hard to know definitively what the number is. Like Max Olson reported earlier today, there were some 400 players in the portal. Stephen Miller tweeted me this from Richard West of Richard West's affiliation is he calls himself the number one breaking news reporter in South Knoxville and vice president of the Southeastern Sports Foundation. He said as of 3:30 today there were 2,468 players that had entered the portal in FBS Division I. 2,468. Now maybe that includes players that had already been in the portal. This one is interesting. This is from Sport Source Analytics. Sports Source Analytics, which refers to themselves, they're the official analytics platform of the college football playoff. So for whatever that is worth, they note, and this was a tweet 1 hour ago. So just for some context about how active a day it has been in the portal. 667 players. This is as of 1 hour ago. 667 players entered the portal today. That's an all-time daily record, they note, exceeding the previous high of 270 set on November the 21st. Of the 667 entering the portal today, 62 of them are quarterbacks. There's 130 FBS programs. 130. 62 quarterbacks have entered the portal today. So, and honestly, that seems like a lot, but if there's 667 players in the portal, so roughly 1 out of every 10 is a quarterback, that kind of makes sense because only one quarterback can play. So you would assume that if you have depth at positions, guys would enter the portal. But from specifically an LSU standpoint, it is going to be worth watching here in the next couple of days what happens with the quarterbacks. Now, Brian Kelly addressed Jaden Daniels' injury, said it talked as if they're getting him ready to play in the bowl game. And I want to remind you that Brian Kelly said they've had those conversations. He had a really good sense of his team, but who was going to be back. As a matter of fact, he was asked on the Citrus Bowl press conference about academic eligibility and who may opt out of bowl games. Here's what Brian Kelly said on Sunday night.
Yeah, we'll have that all sorted out over the next 24, 48 hours. Certainly, you don't worry about academics just one day. We've been on it since we've got here. Could there be somebody ineligible? There might be. We have some guys that have to continue to do some things at the end here, but we've made great strides there. And then there's guys that are evaluating whether, they should be playing in a bowl game or should they, be working out and preparing for, an all-star game or, should they be preparing to, get better for a combine run? Look, those are all things that we'll help and counsel our guys with, and we'll give them both sides of the story. Then ultimately it's their choice.
I want to stress again, LSU, while it has been a very loud and busy day around college football with guys entering the portal, it's been very quiet relative to LSU. Some of the guys that have entered the portal are guys who had already declared they were going to do it, like Antoine Sampa, Phillip Webb, like guys we knew were entering the portal, just made it official that they did today. But as far as new players, none have happened. And it's just LSU is just light years today from where they were a year ago, where you had a very unstable situation. A lot of guys like Elias Ricks and Dwight McGlothern and Max Johnson, guys who were contributors left to go find a newer, better situation potentially. I don't know that you're going to be hit like that. The question for LSU this year is, what positions are you going to lose depth and what guys are going to leave early for the draft really is more the question. When you talk about the quarterbacks, obviously, what happens with Garrett Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels is number one. That's got to be the first most important thing. If Jaden is coming back for another year, y'all know how I feel about that. Fantastic. Give me a guy who's got 40 career starts under his belt, who led you to the SEC West Championship this year, give him another year with this staff, with these coaches, with these players, that, in this system all to continue to grow and develop. And we've seen what a fifth year can do. We saw it with Burrow. We saw it with Zach Mettenberger. You saw it this year with a guy like Hendon Hooker. Yes, give me a fifth-year guy with all that experience. Absolutely. But what does that mean for Garrett? Does Garrett Nussmeier transfer out? Maybe. I don't have the answer to that. But with a day like today, when you see 600 players in the portal, 60 of them quarterbacks, it's understandable that you would get that decision very soon, because you got to know where your option is going to be. If you do leave the place you are, where's your option for next year, right? If a team that's looking for a quarterback looks at the quarterbacks currently in the portal and goes and signs one of them, then that spot may not be there for you any longer. So, yeah, I mean, that's why you do see a lot of guys jump in the portal immediately to know what options are available to them. And if you're in the portal, you can always exit. You can always remain at the school you're at, but you can see what options are there for you. So that's going to be first and foremost what happens there. Brian Kelly was asked about, and this was interesting because he sort of dodged it a little, but he did ask about positions of need in the portal for his team right now.
I mean, I don't want to talk about any particular positions because I think you start then to kind of give away here are our weaknesses. But here's what I would tell you. They got to be the right fit first. They've got to recognize the value of an education from LSU. They've got to have the right traits. We're not just open for business. We're not just putting a sign up saying, hey, we're going to take whoever. They got to be the right fit. I prefer that they're from the state of Louisiana if we can find them. And then, we're going to address needs based upon how that freshman class marries into it by, the particular needs by position class.
A year ago, you kind of were open for business. I mean, you signed 19 transfers a year ago, 15 at the mid-year, because you had to. I mean, you all know the number. Like we've talked about it, 39 players available in the Texas Bowl against K-State. We know what the numbers were. You had to supplement this roster with veterans via the transfer portal just to be able to compete. And, of course, they chose very well. They evaluated very well, and those guys became really impactful by and large. But it's easy to see what some of those needs are going to be. Like, LSU is going to have veteran players on the offensive line leave. You're returning all 5 starters and really your top 6 players because Dellinger and Miles Frazier. And your starters are returning. So these guys who have been waiting their turn, who've been hanging out waiting their turn to play, and you get passed by a transfer and a couple of freshmen, well, it's understandable why veteran guys who are in their second, third year are going to look for a place where they can go play. So you're going to lose players. You're going to lose veteran offensive linemen. That's almost a certainty. You could lose a receiver or two down the line. You're just very deep and talented there. Jeray Jenkins, they expect to go pro as well. Jeray could take advantage of the COVID year and play another season, but that's unlikely. He's probably going to go pro. And so you're going to lose those two, but you return a lot of guys. But a lot of guys are established. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas. You're going to get Chris Hilton back off of injury. Jack Besh is there as well. You've got your freshman, and then you've got a good class of receivers committed already. Could someone down the depth chart make the decision to go? Maybe. That conceivably could happen. Defensive backs, because it's a crowded position group, are always a possibility. One of those guys could leave. But more so, I would say, look at all the super seniors you had in the defensive backfield. Jark Bernard-Converse, Mekhi Gardner, Colby Richardson, Joe Fouché. Jay Ward's probably going pro. We'll wait for his decision on that. But that's not a transfer portal thing, but that's when you're more so looking not at who are you going to lose, but what positions are you looking to add. And that's and I would argue that's the bigger thing for LSU this year. It's not going to be the exodus. You're trying to re-recruit your roster like a year ago when so many guys left. It's where do you have positions that you're going to need to supplement? And remember, the important thing about this year is the hard cap is gone. So it used to be that you could only sign 25. Right? You were hard capped at 25 initials. Well, that's gone now. You can sign as many players as you want. You just can't go over 85 on your roster. And Brian Kelly even acknowledged at some point during the season that they were in the mid-upper 70s. So even during the season, you were already under the 85, and you're going to lose guys to the draft and graduation and transfers and natural attrition. So I can tell you the number that they're kind of looking at, and again, this is a loose number, but it's a pretty good estimate, is probably 25 high school kids and somewhere around 8 to 10 transfers, depending on, who stays, who goes, what your numbers actually look like, and who's available. So you're going to be looking to sign somewhere in the low to mid 30s in this class when you look at freshmen and transfers. So yeah, I mean, you're going to be looking at adding depth on the offensive line for sure. In that secondary, because you're losing so many guys, you're going to have to add somebody with experience in the secondary, in particular at corner. I've told you this before. If there's a game-breaking wide receiver, a veteran wide receiver that can stretch the field, they're going to look to add a veteran wide receiver in the transfer portal as well. And it was very clear against A&M and against Georgia that you need help on the defensive line. The guys you had there with Mekhi Wingo and Jaquelin Roy and Jacobian Guillory are good players. What you didn't have was depth in a rotation. You're getting Mason Smith back. We all know that. But if they can add someone in the middle of that defensive line and also an edge player via the portal, they're going to do that as well. So a huge point for LSU this year is going to be what happens with Jacobian Guillory and Jaquelin Roy. Because if they come back and you have Mekhi Gardner and Mason Smith coming off of injury, now all of a sudden you got a really talented rotation on the interior. But until you know if those guys are staying or going, you've got to be considerate about and very intentional about the interior of your defensive line as well. That's where they're going to be looking. Look, we'll watch running back. Josh Williams has another year. John Emery could return. Armani Goodwin's coming off of injury. You've got bodies there, and you got 2 freshmen coming in. But Noah Cain has another year. But what if somebody leaves? And they could, because that's crowded and there's only one ball and not enough reps to go around for all these guys. So someone could leave. So do you add, if there's a possibility of adding a talented running back via the portal? Sure, you look there as well. But if I had to look at it, I'd tell you there's a chance I'll add a running back. Really good possibility to add a receiver. You're probably looking for a couple of offensive linemen, probably a defensive tackle, an edge guy, and probably a couple of players in the secondary. I mean, right there, you're looking at 8 players. That's probably what you're looking. And depending on what happens with quarterback, potentially a quarterback as well, if you need veteran presence there. I'll remind you, Brian Kelly signed Jaden Daniels this year. His last year at Notre Dame, they added Jack Cohn from Wisconsin. He's not opposed to adding a veteran quarterback to that room if you need to add someone with some experience to go compete. But you got to wait and see how it shakes out with your guys first. So as the transfer portal window opens here, we're keeping an eye on those positions, but it's more so going to be for LSU, not players jumping into the portal. It's going to be what guys on this roster decide they're going to go pro, who's opting out of the bowl game, and that's going to determine more so what spots you have to add from the portal and on your incoming freshman class. But in a big reason why that's transpired the way it is also is that 2020 signing class. That 2020 signing class, normally when you're looking at who's going to leave early or who's going to go pro, look at LSU's 2020 signing class. It's been decimated already. You're going to lose Kayshawn early to the draft. You're going to lose B.J. Ojulari early to the draft. And maybe Jaquelin Roy. But, look at the 2020 class, y'all. Eric Gilbert, he's already gone. Eli Ricks, already gone. Booty and Roy are here. Philip Webb, gone. Toll's gone. Ojulari's still here. Guillory's still here. Antoine Sampa's already gone. Marcus Dumerville's probably one of those guys who might be a transfer risk. Trey Bradford's already gone. Josh White gone. Max Johnson gone. Eric Taylor gone. Dwight McGlothern gone. Coy Moore gone. Marlon Martinez hasn't played. Alex Adams gone. Cole Taylor's still here. Ali Gay was a JUCO guy. Xavier Hill hasn't played. And TJ Finley's already gone. So you don't really have a lot of flight risks from that 2020 class, the juniors, because most of them are already gone. So, again, more so keep an eye on who LSU may target coming in than who you're afraid might leave. Just a different conversation around LSU this year than certainly a year ago. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.